everyone, welcome to the next session on operations research. In this session, we will discuss the topic of characteristics of games. Games in game theory are structured scenarios where players make decisions that affect each other's outcomes. These scenarios have certain characteristics that define the game, the strategies available, and how payoffs are distributed. Below are the main characteristics of games in game theory. The first one is number of players. Single player. It is also called as solitaire games. Though rare in game theory, some games involve a single decision maker whose decisions impact only themselves. Example, optimization problems. So suppose if we are talking about a company X which is producing some product in the market, say a cell phone, and there is no other cell phone like the one which is produced by company X, then company X will be called as single player because X will make the products, and whatever decisions this company X makes, it will only impact itself. It will not impact anyone else in the market because no one else is holding the same product. Multiplayer games. Most games in game theory involve two or more players. These players make decisions that influence one another's outcomes. Now when we are talking about cell phone, wherein you will never find any company which is making a unique product. Most of the companies make similar kind of product. So suppose if there are two manufacturing companies X and Y, if X takes a decision to bring out a mobile phone in the next version with a better camera, obviously it will affect the sales of the company Y because everyone would want to have mobile which is produced by company X. Similarly, if Y comes up with a plan of having a body of the cell phone which is made of, say, a material which is very sturdy, then again X's products will get affected because Y has now brought into the market a phone which is very sturdy. So that is called as a multiplayer game. Next one is player rationality. Game theory assumes that players are rational, meaning they seek to maximize their payoffs or utility based on the available information. Each player is expected to choose strategies that offer the best possible outcome for themselves. So, same example if we take of the mobile phone which is produced by X and Y, then they both have to assume certain things very rationally, like a phone can fall from the customer's hand, hence the body needs to be sturdy. The customer would not want to carry a mobile and a camera separately, so everyone today wants to have a good camera. So suppose if the decision is to have a better camera, then again this is a very rational kind of decision, and obviously they would want a good payoff once they have brought this product into the market with a good camera. The next one is strategies. A strategy is a complete plan of action that specifies what a player will do in every possible situation. Strategies can be pure strategy. The player makes a specific choice or decision. Mixed strategy. The player randomly chooses among strategies based on a probability distribution. So again, the company can make a pure strategy like bringing in a mobile phone which will have a sturdy body, or it could have mixed strategies where the company can decide to have various types of bodies. For example, a metal body which will be the most sturdy, but the heat dissipation will be too much out of that mobile phone when it gets heated. So holding a metal body will become very difficult. And then again the company may think of bringing a material which is of a bit plastic type, such that the heat dissipation is there, but it is not so high such that it starts reflecting in the hands of the customer when he is using it. So these are mixed strategies. They are again made based on the probability distribution for the material of the cell phone. The next one is payoffs. The payoff is the outcome or result that the player receives based on the actions chosen by all players. Payoffs can be positive gains or negative losses and are typically represented numerically. Players aim to maximize their payoffs, which depend on the combined strategies of all players. So result or outcome is the main reason why the players are into the business. and they are trying to bring out the best strategy such that they are going to remain in the market with their product for a longer duration of time. Now, there can be sometimes profit and sometimes losses. As I gave you the example of X and Y producing different products. If X is making a product, taking a decision, Y will suffer. If Y makes a decision, X will suffer. So, the payoff can be a positive or a negative type. The next one is type of interaction. Cooperative versus non-cooperative games. Cooperative games, players can form binding agreements or coalitions to achieve better outcomes. The focus is on how to distribute collective payoffs. Non-cooperative games, players act independently without forming alliances. They make decisions to maximize their own payoffs, often leading to competition. So generally you find non-cooperative games itself, because what the two companies do is they take their own decisions and that will affect the other company. Cooperative games happen when the two companies make a tie-up. Say both of them are in losses and they want to make a tie-up such that they are able to sustain with that cooperation. Information available. Perfect information versus imperfect information. Perfect information. Every player knows the full history of actions taken by all players at every point in the game. Example, chess. Imperfect information. Players are unaware of some aspects of the game, such as the other player's strategies or actions. Example, poker. I hope this is very easy and you can understand. Complete information versus incomplete information. Complete information. Players know all the rules, strategies, payoffs, and preferences of other players. Incomplete information. Some aspects, such as the payoffs or strategies of other players, are unknown, leading to more uncertainty. So, there can be a perfectly known information or an imperfectly known information. You may sometimes know all the strategies that the other competitor in the market is playing, that is complete information, and sometimes you may not know anything, that is incomplete information. But in any which ways you will have to take your decisions and sustain in the market. Sequential versus simultaneous moves. Sequential games, players take turns making decisions, with each player being aware of the previous player's decisions before making their own. Example, chess, checkers. Simultaneous games, all players make decisions at the same time without knowing the choices of the others. Example, rock, paper, scissors, bidding in an auction. So when you play chess, you know what the other player has already made a move in the previous case. So you make the next move based on the previous move that you have seen. But when you play a game like rock, paper, scissors, everyone has to reveal their cards at the same time. So in that case, you cannot wait to know whether the other person is going to show paper, scissors, or rock, and accordingly you decide what you want to show. It is an impromptu game and you just have to play it without understanding or presuming anything. You just have to take a chance and go ahead with it. Deterministic versus stochastic outcomes. Deterministic games. The outcome of the game is completely determined by the player's actions with no element of chance. Example, chess, where moves directly affect the result. Stochastic games. Chance plays a role in determining the outcome of the game. The player's strategies influence probabilities but do not fully determine the outcome. Example, dice games, certain evolutionary games. So when you are playing a dice game, you just have to throw the dice and wait for the result. So it is all a matter of chance, and you cannot determine what number will turn up on the dice. But when you're playing chess, yes, you know the moves and you know how the player is going to play. You may at least trace out the form of game. That is called as deterministic games. Zero sum versus non-zero sum games. Zero sum games. In these games, one player's gain is exactly balanced by another player's loss. The total payoff for all players add up to zero. Example, poker, where one player's winnings equal another's losses. Non-zero sum games, cooperation between players can lead to mutual gains or losses, and the total payoff may be greater or less than zero. Example, the prisoner's dilemma, trade negotiations. I have already discussed about prisoner's dilemma in the previous class. You can see the video, you will understand. So when you're talking about poker, one person makes a move, he wins everything, the other person completely loses everything. And in non-zero sum games, sometimes cooperation can lead to losses or gains. Symmetric versus asymmetric games. Symmetric games, the payoffs for choosing a particular strategy depends only on the other player's strategies, not on who is playing. In other words, players face identical strategic options and outcomes. Example, rock, paper, scissors. So when you're playing rock, paper, scissors, say you are demonstrating rock and the other person shows paper. What happens is the rock gets covered by paper, you lose, the other person wins. So, what strategy you have played is not determining your probability of winning, but the other person, what he is demonstrating, is going to determine your result or payoff. Asymmetric games, players have different strategies or payoffs available to them. The roles of players are not interchangeable. Example, the ultimatum game, where one player proposes a division of money and the other player can accept or reject. So, this is another type of game, asymmetric game, where players have different strategies available and the role which is there is not interchangeable, like an ultimatum game. Finite versus infinite games. Finite games, these games have a finite number of players, moves, and outcomes. The game eventually ends after a certain number of rounds or decisions. Example, tic tac toe or chess. In finite games, these games do not have a predetermined endpoint and can theoretically continue indefinitely. Payoffs may be assessed over an infinite horizon. Example, repeated games like iterated prisoners dilemma. So if you are going on with this iterative type of prisoner's dilemma, it will continue indefinitely. But games like chess or tic-tac-toe, they definitely come to an end after a certain number of moves. You cannot play beyond that. Equilibrium. Equilibrium refers to a stable state where no player can unilaterally change their strategy to improve their payoff. The most well-known concept is Nash equilibrium, where each player's strategy is optimal given the strategies of others, and no player has anything to gain by changing their strategy alone. So this is called as Nash equilibrium, where one person gains, the other person loses. The summation will always be zero, and that is the equilibrium state here. Conflict versus cooperation. Games can model situations of pure conflict, such as war or competitive markets, or cooperation, such as alliances or teamwork. Some games involve a mixture of both, where players can benefit from cooperating but also have incentives to defeat or cheat. Example, public goods games. So, where you are having incentives to defeat or cheat, that is also a form of cooperative games that are possible, and there are many types of games of this sort which are available in the market these days. I'm not labeling any of them here, you can just figure out on your own and you can read about them. So these strategies help classify and analyze different types of games and strategic interactions, guiding the prediction of players' behavior in competitive or cooperative settings. We have already discussed that there is either competitive or cooperative type of games. So in any which ways the player is playing, he will have to decide his strategy and figure out what type of game he is up to and then go ahead with it. So with this, I end the session on characteristics of games. If you have any doubt, please write to me in the comment section. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell icon for latest video updates. See you in the next session. Thank you.